When I entered, my mother-in-law declared, "My daughter's kids eat first. Her kids can wait for scraps." My children sat silently before their empty plates. My sister-in-law chimed in. "They should know their place." I said nothing. I simply took my children and walked out. They assumed I was defeated. Minutes later, their house echoed with screams they never expected. I stood there, frozen, watching my 9-year-old daughter stare at an empty plate while her cousin gorged on a third helping of lasagna. That's when the words, sharp as broken glass, cut through the dining room. "My daughter's kids eat first. Her kids can wait for scraps." It was a betrayal so profound, it didn't just shock me, it shattered something deep inside my soul. My mother-in-law, Addison, didn't even glance up as she served another generous portion to Harper. My sister-in-law, Peyton, caught my eye, a smug smile playing on her lips. She leaned down to Mia and Evan, perched on bar stools with their plates glaringly bare, and declared, loud enough for everyone to hear, "They should know their place." From his recliner, Roger nodded, his fork halfway to his mouth. That's when I knew. 6 years of generosity, of trying to belong, had just culminated in my children's public humiliation. They thought I was defeated. They thought I'd quietly accept their cruelty, just like I always had. They thought I'd crawl back, begging for their fractured version of family. What they didn't know was that in exactly 18 minutes, their entire world was about to collapse, and the screaming, oh, the screaming would begin. But to understand why that moment sparked such a reckoning, you need to know how I became their personal ATM. How I went from being Wyatt's beloved fiancé to being the family bank account, someone they believed they could humiliate without consequence. It began subtly, 2 months before our wedding. Addison called, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine distress. Property taxes, she explained, had unexpectedly skyrocketed. Could we help, just this once? $3,000. She promised to pay it back within months. I was a senior project manager at a pharmaceutical company, staring at the number she'd written down. 3,000 wasn't nothing, but it wasn't impossible either. I wrote the check that same day. Wyatt was so grateful. He pulled me into a hug, telling me how lucky his family was to have me, how few people would be so generous to strangers. He didn't know I wasn't being generous. I was being desperate. My parents had died in a car accident during my junior year of college, leaving me with a modest inheritance and a crushing loneliness. Wyatt's family seemed like everything I'd lost. His mother baked pies, his father told jokes, his sister's kids called me, Aunt Leah, within weeks. When Addison hugged me and called me the daughter she always wanted, a tiny part of me healed. I thought I'd found my place, my home. I had no idea I'd just made my first payment into a system that would bleed me dry. 3 months after the wedding, Roger needed a medical procedure. Insurance covered most of it, but not all. $5,000 this time. Addison cried, explaining Roger's embarrassment, his pride, how much it meant that family was stepping up. I signed that check even faster. Her gratitude made me feel needed, essential. That's when I should have noticed the pattern. Why wasn't Peyton, Roger's adult daughter, contributing? Why couldn't his own savings cover a $5,000 gap? Why did every family crisis somehow become my responsibility? But I didn't ask. I wanted to be the good daughter-in-law, the one who understood that family helps family, the one who belonged. My career had taken off. Senior project manager at 31 was impressive, and my salary reflected that success, nearly 3 times what Wyatt made teaching high school biology. His family noticed this disparity immediately. Addison would touch my arm, her eyes warm, saying how proud she was that Wyatt had married someone so successful, so capable of providing stability. I didn't realize she was calculating my worth down to the dollar. The requests escalated with alarming precision. Addison would call within days of me mentioning a promotion, suddenly facing a $15,000 roof emergency. The contractor's estimate would arrive in my office the same afternoon, as if she'd been planning it for weeks. Roger's truck would die right after my year-end bonus hit our account, needing immediate replacement for his part-time job. Then came Peyton's crisis, a bitter divorce, requiring a $12,000 custody lawyer to protect Harper and Liam. Addison called, sobbing, insisting, "Family sticks together, we protect our own." How could I say no to protecting children? I wrote that check without even discussing it with Wyatt. What I didn't ask was why Peyton's own parents, who owned their house outright and had retirement savings, couldn't cover their daughter's legal fees. Why every emergency skipped the people who should have been first in line and landed directly on me. I was too busy trying to prove I belonged to notice I was being used. Midway subscribe line asterisk by the way, if you're still with me on this wild ride, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss the truly unbelievable stories coming next. Main story, continued 6 years. 6 years of writing checks for emergencies that always seemed to coincide with my bonuses and raises. 6 years of funding roof repairs, truck replacements, legal fees, and medical bills. 6 years of being told I was generous, selfless. The daughter-in-law every mother dreams of having. What I failed to track was the complete absence of reciprocity. It was a one-way street. When Mia was hospitalized with severe pneumonia and I desperately needed help with Evan, Addison was too busy with her church group. When I suffered a miscarriage and could barely get out of bed, Peyton couldn't take time off from her part-time boutique job to bring meals. When Wyatt and I desperately needed a weekend away to reconnect, suddenly everyone had scheduling conflicts. But when they needed money, I was family. Sacred, obligated, expected to sacrifice without hesitation. Wyatt never questioned it. He'd been raised in a household where his mother's word was absolute law. Peyton's position as the blood daughter granted her a status I could never achieve, no matter how much money I contributed. He genuinely believed that financial support equaled love, that writing checks proved our commitment to family bonds. I wanted so badly to be a good wife, to honor his family, that I ignored the growing unease in my gut. I ignored how they never asked about my work stress, never celebrated my achievements. I ignored how they praised Peyton for managing her boutique job while dismissing my 60-hour weeks as just corporate work anyone could do. I ignored how their house was filled with dozens of photos of Harper and Liam, but not a single picture of Mia and Evan. I ignored everything because I was terrified of being the difficult daughter-in-law, the outsider who didn't understand their ways. So, I kept writing checks. I kept showing up for Sunday dinners where I was expected to help cook and clean while Peyton scrolled on her phone. I kept volunteering to host holidays because Addison's back hurt too much. Then watched her play for hours with Harper and Liam without a parent paying. I kept being the ATM, the solution to every financial problem, the daughter-in-law who never said no. Until the day I walked in and saw my children sitting in front of empty plates while their cousins feasted. Until I heard Addison say my kids could wait for scraps. Until Peyton told my babies they needed to know their place. That's when 6 years of willful blindness shattered. I finally understood what I'd really been funding, not family connection, not belonging, but my children's systematic humiliation at the hands of people who thought my money was more valuable than my kids' dignity. I gathered Mia and Evan and left that house without a single word. I didn't trust myself to speak. If I started talking, I'd start screaming, and I needed to be cold, calculated, for what came next. In the car, Evan quietly asked if we were in trouble. Mia stared out the window, silent tears tracking down her face. And right there, in that driveway, I made a decision. I was done being the good daughter-in-law. Done writing checks for people who thought my children were disposable. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. My mind was already calculating. 18 minutes. That's how long my children had sat with empty plates, watching their cousins eat. In 18 minutes, I was going to return the favor. The morning of that fateful day had started like any other Tuesday. I dropped the kids at summer camp, endured 3 back-to-back client presentations, and fielded endless emails. By 4:30 p.m., I was still stuck in a conference room, realizing with sinking dread I wouldn't make it to pick up Mia and Evan by 5. I texted Addison from under the table, trying to look like I was taking notes. Running late with work. Any chance you could grab the kids from camp and keep them until 7? So sorry for the short notice. Her response came back in 30 seconds. Of course. Would love extra time with them. Take all the time you need. I should have known. Addison never volunteered for extra time with my children. There was always an excuse. But I was too relieved to question it. I sent back a grateful thank you and returned to the meeting, mentally calculating my escape. It wasn't quick. By the time I made it to my car, it was 6:45 p.m. I texted Addison again. She responded with a smiley face emoji. Dinner's ready whenever you arrive. Dinner. She'd made them dinner. That should have been my second warning. I pulled into their driveway at 7:15 p.m., the sun casting long shadows. Before I even turned off the engine, I heard children's laughter. But it felt off, fractured, like two separate groups. I grabbed my work bag, the key Addison had given me 6 years ago, heavy in my hand. She'd made a whole ceremony out of it, proclaiming I was officially family. But the key symbolized my place in their home and their hearts. Wyatt had gotten emotional, Peyton hugged me, Roger toasted. I'd cried tears of gratitude, believing I finally belonged. Now, that key felt like a weapon as I slid it into the lock. The front door opened directly into their living room, but the noise was coming from deeper in the house. I followed the scent of rich tomato sauce, garlic, and fresh bread. My stomach growled. I'd skipped lunch. Maybe, I thought, Addison had actually considered my needs for once. I walked into the combined kitchen and dining space, and that's when I saw it. The scene that would replay in my nightmares. Peyton's children sat at the formal mahogany dining table, like it was a celebration. Harper, 10, her napkin tucked in, on her third helping of lasagna. Leah, mate, laughing, reaching for another piece of garlic bread. Their plates piled high, Rio plates, the floral ones Addison saved for holidays. Crystal glasses, cloth napkins. 15 feet away, at the kitchen counter, sat Mia and Evan. Their plates were completely empty, not even crumbs. Just white ceramic surfaces, reflecting back their worthlessness. They sat perfectly still, hands folded, watching their cousins eat like it was television, something they weren't part of and never would be. The segregation was so deliberate, so stark, my brain couldn't immediately process it. This wasn't an accident. This was intentional. Addison stood at the dining table, her back to my children, serving Harper another generous portion, smiling and chatting with Peyton, who scrolled on her phone. Roger was in his recliner, plate balanced, watching the news. No one had noticed me yet. "Oh, Leah, perfect timing," Addison said, finally glancing up. No embarrassment, no guilt. Just mild pleasure, as if I'd arrived at a convenient moment. "We just finished dinner." Finished. As if my children had participated in a meal instead of watching others eat. My throat had closed up with a rage so cold it felt like ice. I walked over to Mia and Evan and knelt down, forcing my voice to sound calm. "Hey babies, how was your day?" "Good," Mia said, that careful, neutral tone she used when she was trying not to upset anyone, to minimize herself. At 9 years old, my daughter had already learned to make herself smaller. When had I let that happen? "Did you guys have fun playing together?" I asked, glancing between my kids and their cousins. Evan shook his head. Thank God for Evan's honesty. "They played different games," he said quietly. I looked around the room again. My children perched on bar stools like visitors, Peyton's kids sprawled like owners. Nobody at that table seemed to think anything was wrong. "What did everyone have for dinner?" I asked, though I knew the answer would destroy me. "Grammy made lasagna," Harper announced proudly. "It's really good." "And what did you two have?" I asked my daughter. Mia hesitated, glancing at Addison. That glance told me everything about the power dynamics. "We weren't that hungry," she finally said. But I knew Mia. She was always hungry after camp. "Actually, there wasn't quite enough for everyone," Addison interjected smoothly, as if explaining something perfectly reasonable. "So, I made them grilled cheese earlier. They were fine with it. Children don't need full meals every single time they're here." I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter. A large glass lasagna pan sat there, with at least 6 generous servings still remaining. Enough to feed my children twice over. Enough to make Addison's explanation a blatant lie. And she didn't even care that I could see it. "I think I'll make them plates now," I said, reaching for the serving spoon. "Leah, honestly, they're fine," Addison said, an edge in her voice. "They already ate. But Harper and Liam seem to need full meals," I observed quietly, looking at the overflowing plates. "They seem to need second and third helpings." The room went silent. Even Roger's chewing slowed. "My daughter's children have different nutritional needs," Addison said, the casualness of her cruelty taking my breath away. "Her kids can wait for scraps if there's not enough to go around. That's just how it works in blended families." Blended families. As if the problem was family structure instead of deliberate exclusion. As if she was explaining basic mathematics instead of teaching my children they didn't deserve to eat. I started serving lasagna onto 2 clean plates anyway, my hands shaking with barely contained fury. Behind me, I heard Peyton's chair scrape. Her footsteps approached, then her voice, directed at my children. "You two are sweet kids," she said, smiling. "But you should know your place in this family. My children come first. That's just how it is." Mia's fork, picked up in anticipation, stopped. Evan's eyes filled with tears he was too proud to let fall. Roger's voice came from the living room, agreeable and matter-of-fact. "Best they learn it young." I looked at my children's faces as they absorbed this lesson about their worth, about how their own family saw them as lesser beings. Something inside me snapped clean in half. "Come on, kids," I said quietly. "Get your things. We're leaving." "Leah, don't be dramatic," Addison called after me, but I was already helping Mia down. "We can talk about this." I didn't respond. I put the plates of lasagna I'd been preparing into the microwave and set it for 2 minutes. My children were going to eat, properly, sitting down. "Talk about what?" I finally said, my voice eerily calm. "About how you think my children should accept being second-class family members? About how you think it's appropriate to feed them scraps while their cousins feast?" The microwave beeped. I pulled out the plates, tested the temperature, and set them in front of Mia and Evan. Their faces transformed. That joy shouldn't have broken my heart, but it did. They shouldn't have been this grateful for basic decency. "You're twisting everything," Roger said from his recliner. "We love those kids." "Do you?" I looked at him directly. "When's the last time you came to one of Evan's baseball games? When's the last time you asked Mia about her science fair project? She won second place, by the way. A model of the solar system that lit up." More silence. "When's the last time either of you treated them like they actually belonged here?" While my children ate, I pulled up another bar stool. "So, what did you guys do all day?" I asked gently. "Watch TV mostly," Evan said. "The ones for little kids. Did you play any games? It's such a beautiful day." The question hung in the air. Mia answered, her eyes still on her plate. "Harper and Liam went to the park with Grammy." "That sounds fun. Did you go too?" Silence. The kind that speaks volumes. "Why didn't you go, baby?" I asked, though I knew the answer would gut me. "Grammy said she could only take 2 kids safely." Mia explained with a matter-of-factness that shattered something inside me. "And Harper and Liam asked first, so they got to go." Asked first. As if my children's grandmother operated on a first-come, first-served basis, instead of treating all her grandchildren equally. "How long were they gone?" I asked. "We watched 3 episodes of cartoons," Evan said. "An hour and a half minimum." My children had sat inside, watching toddler cartoons, while their grandmother took their cousins to the park on a perfect summer afternoon. And nobody had thought there was anything wrong with that picture. I looked at Addison, who was suddenly very interested in wiping down an already clean table. "You couldn't take all 4 kids to the park?" "It's a safety issue, Leah," she said without looking at me. "I can only watch so many children at once. Harper and Liam are more familiar with the park rules. I didn't want to risk Risk what? I cut her off. Risk my children existing in the same space as their cousins? Risk treating them like they matter? That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Peyton, quiet until now, set down her phone. Actually, Leah, since you're here, I should mention we're going to be pretty busy the next few weekends. Summer's full of activities. She said it casually, but I caught the deliberate exclusion. What kind of activities? I asked. Oh, you know, community pool parties, neighborhood barbecues, the annual family reunion on my mom's side. That sounds wonderful. The kids would love all of that, especially the pool parties. Mia's been practicing her diving all summer. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Well, Peyton said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes, these are kind of specific events, not really appropriate for everyone. What does that mean? Roger cleared his throat. What Peyton means is that some of these events are specifically for blood family. Keeps things simple, you understand? Traditions and all that. Blood family. There was the phrase that reduced my children to outsiders in their own family tree. I see, I said, only beginning to see the full architecture of their exclusion. And you think it's appropriate to teach my children that they're not real family? That they don't deserve the same experiences as their cousins? We're not saying they're not real family. Addison protested, finally looking at me. We're just being realistic about social dynamics. Your kids need to understand that Peyton's children will always have certain privileges because they carry our bloodline. It's natural. It's biological. She was using science words to justify cruelty. So, at the pool party, I said slowly, when Harper and Liam are swimming and playing, where exactly do you expect my children to be? At the family reunion, when everyone's taking photos and sharing stories, do Mia and Evan just stand in the corner? Do they wait outside? You're being deliberately obtuse, Peyton said, irritation creeping into her voice. Nobody said they'd be excluded from everything. Just some events are more appropriate for our side of the family, the biological side. I looked around that dining room. The portraits on the walls were all of Peyton's children. Not a single photograph of Mia or Evan. Not one. Let me ask you something else, I said, standing up. When's the last time any of you came to Evan's baseball games? He plays every Saturday. When's the last time you asked Mia about school, her friends, the science fair she spent 6 weeks preparing for? Roger shifted uncomfortably. We ask about school. When? When's the last time you called? Just to talk to them, not to ask me for money? The question landed like a physical blow. I could see the realization in their faces, that I'd connected the dots they thought I was too blind to see. That's not fair, Addison said weakly. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like your relationship with my children has always been secondary to your relationship with my bank account. You remember to call when Roger needed a new truck. You remember to call when Peyton needed a lawyer. You remember to call when the roof needed repairs. But you've never once remembered to call on Mia's birthday. Not once in 9 years. We send cards. Peyton protested. You send cards your mother buys in bulk at the grocery store, because I found the receipt on the counter last Christmas. Generic birthday cards with $20 tucked inside. The same cards you send to your hairdresser. Mia had stopped eating. Both my children stared at their plates, absorbing this conversation about their worth. Come on, kids, I said quietly. Get your things. We're leaving. Leah, please. Addison started taking a step toward me. Let's not do this in front of the children. You should have thought about that before you did it in front of the children, I said, before you made them watch their cousins eat while they went hungry. Before you taught them they're not worth the same effort, the same love, the same basic decency as Harper and Liam. I helped Mia and Evan gather their backpacks, moving mechanically, my mind racing. At the door, I turned back. We'll talk again soon, when you're ready to be honest about whether you actually love my children, or just my money. The flash of panic across Addison's face told me everything. For the first time in 6 years, she realized her cash flow might be in jeopardy. I walked my children to the car in silence. Buckled them in. My hands were shaking. My whole body was shaking. In the rearview mirror, both kids stared out their windows, faces carefully blank, the way children learn when they're trying not to cry. That's when I knew exactly what I had to do. I turned the key in the ignition, but didn't put the car in drive. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. I should have said something comforting. But my throat was closed, and I couldn't find words that wouldn't be lies. Finally, I put the car in reverse. The house sat there in my rearview mirror, warm light glowing, looking exactly like the kind of home where families gathered and children were loved. The illusion was perfect from the outside. We made it 3 blocks before Mia spoke. "Mom?" Her voice was so small. "Why don't Grammy and Pop like us as much as Harper and Liam?" The question landed in my chest like a stone. I opened my mouth to give her the comforting lie, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't lie to her anymore. "They should love you exactly the same, baby," I said, my voice shaking. "Grandparents are supposed to love all their grandchildren equally, but they don't," Evan added, flat and factual. "We're not blood family," and Peyton said. I had to pull over. I couldn't see the road through the tears. I pressed my palms against my eyes. My 7-year-old son had just articulated his own perceived worthlessness, in the same tone he might use to comment on the weather. "Listen to me," I said, turning to face them. "What Aunt Peyton said is cruel and wrong. You are family. You are their grandchildren. And if they can't see how special and valuable you are, that's their failure, not yours. Do you understand?" Mia nodded, but her eyes were full of doubt. Evan just stared at his hands. "How long has this been happening?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. The kids exchanged a glance, that silent sibling communication. "Always, I think," Mia finally said. "But we thought maybe we were being too sensitive. Like maybe we were imagining it." "Always," the word echoed. Always meant every time I dropped them off, every Sunday dinner, every holiday gathering, this had been happening, and I'd been too blind to see it. Or maybe too afraid. Because seeing it would have meant choosing. My mind raced backward through 6 years. Mia's 6th birthday party, Addison and Roger showering Harper and Liam with elaborate gifts while Mia got a $20 Target gift card. Christmas 2 years ago, their living room covered in framed photos of Peyton's kids, and when I asked about Mia and Evan, Addison said she was waiting to get good ones printed. The beach house vacation we weren't invited to because of limited space, though the house had 4 bedrooms. Every small cruelty had been there, building a foundation of exclusion brick by brick. I'd been too busy writing checks to notice the structure they were constructing around my children. When we pulled into our driveway, Wyatt was in the kitchen. Normal Tuesday evening, making dinner, assuming we'd walk in with stories and everything would be fine. Everything was not fine. The kids went straight upstairs. I stood in the entryway, trying to compose myself. "What happened?" Wyatt asked, already defensive, bracing for criticism of his family. I told him everything. Every word his mother had said, every cruelty his sister had inflicted. I watched his face cycle through shock, discomfort, and then settle into resignation. That expression told me he'd known. Maybe not the specific incidents, but the overall pattern. He'd known and chosen not to see it. "They probably didn't mean it the way it sounded," he said, and the words felt like a betrayal. "You know how Mom is. She says things without thinking. She told our children they should wait for scraps, Wyatt. Your sister told them they need to know their place. What part of that could I possibly be misunderstanding?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I knew from every difficult conversation. "I'm sure there's context you're missing. Family dynamics are complicated." "Stop," I said, my voice sharp enough to make him take a step back. "Stop defending them. Stop making excuses. Your family humiliated our children today. And instead of being angry about it, you're telling me I'm overreacting? I'm not saying you're overreacting. I'm saying maybe we should talk to them before jumping to conclusions. I heard what they said, Wyatt. I saw what they did. There are no conclusions to jump to. This happened. He was quiet, struggling with the battle between the son who never questioned his mother and the father who was supposed to protect his children. "They've always been good to us," he finally said, and the weakness in that argument made me want to scream. "Have they? When Mia was in the hospital, where was your mother? When I had a miscarriage, did your sister bring a single meal? When we begged them to babysit so we could save our marriage, did any of them make time? That's different." "How is it different?" "They had commitments. They have lives. They can't drop everything just because we need help." "But we can drop everything when they need money, can't we?" I said quietly. "Funny how that works." I walked past him to the home office, pulling up our bank account. Wyatt followed, hovering in the doorway. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done years ago," I said. "I'm calculating exactly how much money we've given your family." "Leah, that's not necessary." "It's absolutely necessary. I need to know. I need to see the number. I need to understand what I've been funding all this time while they've been systematically excluding our children from their own family." The spreadsheets came together. 3,000 here, 5,000 there, 15 for the roof, 12 for legal fees. The numbers climbed higher and higher as Wyatt watched, his face growing paler with each entry. When I finally reached the total, I stared at it. $134,000. I said out loud, my voice hollow. Over 6 years. $134,000. And in return, they taught my children they weren't worth feeding. Wyatt made a sound like he'd been punched. "That can't be right." "It's right. I've checked it 3 times. I scrolled back to the top. "Every bank transfer, every check, every direct payment." "Want me to walk you through it?" He didn't answer, just stared at the screen. 3,000 for property taxes before we were even married. 5,000 for your dad's medical procedure 3 months after the wedding. 12,000 for Peyton's custody lawyer. 15,000 for the roof. 8,000 for your mom's dental work. 22,000 for your dad's truck. "I didn't realize," Wyatt said weakly. "I didn't know it added up to that much." "That's the problem, Wyatt. You never asked? You never questioned why every family emergency became my financial responsibility. You never wondered why your parents, with their paid-off house, and your sister, with her boutique job, couldn't handle their own expenses without my constant support." I kept scrolling. "Some of these were loans," he tried, grasping at straws. "They were going to pay us back." "Were they? Show me one. Show me a single loan that's been repaid." Silence. "The roof repair was supposed to be temporary help. Dad was going to pay us back when his settlement came through." "What settlement?" "Wyatt? There was no settlement. That was just another story to make me feel better about writing the check." He sank into the chair, his head in his hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry. But then I remembered Mia and Evan with empty plates, and the sympathy evaporated. "They're my parents," he said, muffled. "They raised me. They sacrificed for me. I can't just abandon them." "I'm not asking you to abandon them. I'm asking you to see what they've been doing to our children, to us. They've been using you, Wyatt. Using your guilt and obligation to bleed us dry while treating our kids like they're less than human. That's not fair. Your mother told our children they should wait for scraps." I cut him off, my voice rising. "Your sister told them they need to know their place. Your father agreed they should learn young to expect less. While we've been paying for their mortgages and trucks and lawyers, they've been teaching our babies they don't deserve basic dignity. How is pointing that out not fair?" Footsteps on the stairs. I lowered my voice. "Mom?" Mia's voice, small and uncertain. "Can I get some water?" "Of course, baby. I'll come with you." I left Wyatt in the office, staring at the spreadsheet. Mia filled her water bottle, taking longer than necessary. She'd come down because she heard us arguing. "Are you and Dad fighting about what happened at Grammy's?" she asked. I could have lied. But I was so tired of lying. "We're having a difficult conversation about it, yes. Is it our fault?" The question shattered what was left of me. I pulled her into a hug. No, sweetheart. None of this is your fault. You and Evan have done nothing wrong. The adults in this situation have made bad choices, and we're trying to figure out how to fix it. Does Dad think we're overreacting too? She'd already internalized that her feelings weren't valid. Dad is learning some things he should have paid attention to a long time ago. It's hard for him because it's his family, and nobody wants to believe their family would do something hurtful on purpose. She nodded against my shoulder, her tears soaking through my shirt. After I got her settled, I stood in the hallway, trying to find the strength to finish the conversation. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, my best friend. How did it go? Call me if you need to talk. I desperately needed to hear a voice that wasn't Wyatt's, someone who would validate what I was feeling. Tell me everything, Rachel said when I called. I told her about the empty plates, Addison's casual cruelty, Peyton's deliberate meanness, Roger's agreement. I told her about Wyatt's defensiveness, and the spreadsheet showing $134,000 for people who couldn't be bothered to love my children. I'm not surprised, she finally said. Leah, I've been watching this pattern for years. I tried to point it out gently, but you weren't ready to hear it. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. I understand why you couldn't see it. You wanted family so badly after losing your parents. They exploited that longing, using your generosity as a weapon. What do I do? I asked, my voice breaking. What do you want to do? I thought about it. I want them to hurt the way they hurt my kids, I said quietly. Is that terrible? It's human, Rachel said. And honestly, it might be necessary. Some people don't learn until they face real consequences. Didn't you co-sign on their mortgage? Yeah. 3 years ago, when they were refinancing. Their credit was shot. And you've been making substantial payments. What about Roger's truck? I guaranteed it with my credit score. Rachel was quiet. Leah, do you understand what this means? You're not just giving them money. You're legally responsible for their debts, which means you also have the power to remove yourself from those obligations. My heart pounded. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you want to send a very clear, very powerful message about what happens when you take someone for granted, you have the legal right to stop all support immediately. You can remove yourself as a co-signer on that mortgage. You can withdraw your guarantee on the truck loan. You can stop any payments you've been making. What would happen to them? They'd have to cover those expenses themselves. Given their situation, they probably can't. They'd face foreclosure. The truck would get repossessed. They'd have to drastically downsize. I sat with that information. The power I'd had all along. How fast could this happen? If you make the calls tomorrow, the banks would notify them within 48 hours. Foreclosure proceedings take about 90 days, but the panic would start immediately. I thought about 18 minutes. 18 minutes my children sat with empty plates. I need to think about this, I said. I stayed up most of that night, researching. By 4 in the morning, I'd made my decision. Wyatt left early for summer school, kissing my forehead without meeting my eyes. We hadn't resolved anything. I got the kids ready, they moved with unusual quietness. Mom, Mia asked, are we ever going to see Grammy and Pop again? I don't know yet, sweetheart. We need some time to figure things out. Did we do something wrong? No, you did nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me? She nodded, but doubt lingered. I made it 3 blocks from our house before the tears came. I gripped the steering wheel, sobbing. My children sat silently. I'm sorry, I managed. I'm so sorry you had to experience what happened yesterday. You deserve better. It's okay, Mom, Evan said quietly from the back seat. We're used to it. Used to it. My 7-year-old son was used to being treated as less than human by his own family. How had I let this happen? How had I been so blind? Are we going to be okay? Evan asked. Without Graham's help, are we going to be okay? The question revealed how much he'd absorbed. We're going to be more than okay, I told him, wiping my eyes. I promise you that. After I dropped them at camp, I sat in the parking lot. My accountant's number was pulled up. All I had to do was press call. But once I started this, there was no going back. Once I dismantled their financial security, we would be at war. I pressed call. My accountant, Margaret, answered. I want to move forward, I said. With everything we discussed. You're sure about this, Leah? She asked. I'm sure. First, the mortgage. I'll contact the bank this morning and initiate removal of you as co-signer. They'll need to refinance without your income and credit, which, given their situation, they likely can't do. They'll have 90 days. The bank will contact them within 24 to 48 hours. Next, my lawyer, Patricia. The truck loan is straightforward. You can withdraw that guarantee with written notice. The dealership will contact Roger and require him to refinance within 30 days, or they'll repossess. And Peyton's rent? Even simpler. You've been making supplemental payments directly to her landlord. Just stop paying. No legal process required. Will the landlord notify her? Absolutely. Probably within the week. I sat in my car. I was not going to feel guilty. Not this time. I spent the day working from home, obsessively checking the time. I was going to time this perfectly. 18 minutes. That's how long Mia and Evan had sat with empty plates. At 7:02 p.m., I made the first call. Mortgage bank. Done. They'd be notified within 24 hours. Second call, truck dealership. Done. Roger would be notified. Third call, Peyton's landlord. I'm calling to inform you I'll no longer be making supplemental rent payments for Unit 3B. Effective immediately. The landlord sounded annoyed. She can't afford the full amount on her own. That's between you and her? My obligation ends today. I hung up. 7:04 p.m. Everything was done. Now I waited. Wyatt came home around 7:30, still walking on eggshells. He heated leftovers. I sat at the kitchen table. Did you do something? He asked quietly. I protected our children. Leah, what did you do? My phone rang. Addison. I checked the time, 7:22 p.m. Exactly 18 minutes after I'd made my calls. I answered on speaker. Leah, honey, something's wrong with the mortgage payment. Her voice was trembling. The bank called and said you removed yourself as co-signer. That can't be right. There's no mistake, Addison. I removed myself from your mortgage and stopped all payments. You can't do that. We'll lose the house. Then I suggest you figure out how to make the payments yourselves. You have 90 days before foreclosure proceedings begin. Leah, please. We can work this out. Can we? Because yesterday you told my children they should wait for scraps while your daughter's children ate first. You told them to know their place. So now you're going to learn yours. I ended the call. Wyatt stared at me, his face pale. What did you just do? I took away everything I've been giving them. The mortgage, the truck loan, Peyton's rent. All of it stops today. They're going to lose everything. Good. My phone rang again. Roger. I let it go to voicemail. Moments later, his angry voice filled the kitchen, screaming about how I was destroying the family. 12 minutes after Addison's call, my phone rang a third time. Peyton. Sobbing. You told Frank to stop paying my rent. Leah, I can't afford my apartment without that help. I'm going to get evicted. Then I suggest you ask your mother for help, I said calmly. Oh, wait. She's about to lose her house because I stopped subsidizing her lifestyle, too. You vindictive. Be very careful what you say next, Peyton. Because I've also notified your custody lawyer that I won't be covering any more of your legal fees. I believe you still owe them about $8,000. I'm sure they'll be very interested in immediate payment. The line went dead. 17 minutes after the first call. I looked at Wyatt, who was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I timed it, I said. 18 minutes. The exact amount of time our children sat with empty plates, watching their cousins eat. Every phone call, every moment of panic they're experiencing right now, it matches what they did to Mia and Evan. Minute by minute. Leah, they're going to lose everything they have. Yes, I said. They are. Wyatt's phone started ringing at 6 a.m. the next morning. His mother. He looked at the screen, looked at me, and declined the call. It rang again. And again. By breakfast, he had 14 missed calls. I had 9. The barrage had begun. The first voicemail from Addison started with tears. Leah, honey, please call me back. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. We're going to lose the house. The second, an hour later, was rage. How dare you do this to us after everything we've done for you? We welcomed you into this family. You're a spiteful, vindictive woman, and Wyatt deserves better. I listened, clinical, neutral. She's spiraling, I said. Leah, maybe we should. Should what? Give them another chance to tell our children they're not good enough? Write another check so they can continue treating us like an ATM with a pulse? He had no answer. Roger sent 6 escalating text messages, the last threatening legal action. I forwarded them to Patricia. Your father-in-law is bluffing, she said. Every payment was voluntary. I'm sending him a cease and desist letter. Prepare yourself. This will get worse before it gets better. On day 2, Peyton showed up at my office. I was in a meeting when my assistant, uncomfortable, told me there was a woman in the lobby claiming family emergency. I took the elevator down. Peyton stood near the security desk, blotchy-faced, voice loud. You can't do this to me. My children are going to be homeless because of her. Peyton. She whirled around. Panic. Leah, please. Frank is going to evict me. I can't afford the full rent. Harper and Liam need stability. You can't do this to my children. You did this to your children when you decided mine weren't worth basic decency. You told my kids they should know their place. You said your children come first. Well, now my children come first. You'll figure it out, Peyton. The same way millions of single mothers figure it out without someone else paying their bills. I'll lose custody. Don't you understand? If I can't provide stable housing, Jeremy's lawyer will use it against me. For a split second, I wavered, thinking of Harper and Liam. But then I remembered Mia and Evan on those bar stools. Then maybe you should have thought about consequences before you treated my children like they were disposable. Security escorted her out, screaming. What I didn't expect was the call from Wyatt's Aunt Linda. Addison had called her, asking for money, claiming I'd cut them off, saying I'd always been controlling, and was punishing them over some minor disagreement. She made it sound like he'd been financially abusive for years, Linda said. She's been telling me this for about 3 years now. I've been sending them money every month, thinking they were being mistreated. 3 years. Addison had been running a side operation, painting me as the villain while I funded her life. I sent Linda everything, the spreadsheet, bank statements, even a recording I'd made of Addison talking about my children waiting for scraps. Linda called back an hour later, furious. I've been sending them $1,500 a month based on complete lies. I just called Roger and told him exactly what I think of him and his wife. I won't be sending another dollar. Over the next few days, calls came from Wyatt's uncle, 2 cousins, even Addison's own sister. Each had been told some version of the same story. The web of lies was more extensive than I'd imagined, and watching it unravel gave me a cold satisfaction. Wyatt was caught in the middle, his phone ringing constantly. One night, I heard him talking to his mother. Mom, I can't keep having this conversation. No, I'm not going to make her change her mind because you told her children they should wait for scraps. You told them they needed to know their place. There was a long pause. I don't care if that's not how you meant it. That's what you said. That's what Mia and Evan heard. Do you have any idea what that did to them? When he came downstairs, his eyes were red. I told her I need space, he said. I can't be in the middle of this anymore. I can't keep defending them when I know what they did was wrong. It was the first time he'd acknowledged their behavior without making excuses. That must have been hard, I said. It was. But you know what was harder? Mia asked me earlier if Grammy was mad because we stopped giving her money. She heard me on the phone. She connected all the dots. Leah, she understands that Grammy and Pop-Pop's love was conditional on our financial support. What 9-year-old should have to understand that? He sank down, head in hands. I've been so stupid. I kept defending them, and all this time, our kids were watching and learning. That love is something you have to purchase. You didn't see it because you didn't want to, I said gently. They're your parents. Nobody wants to believe their family would treat them that way. But they did. They used us. They used you specifically because you lost your parents and were desperate for family. They saw that vulnerability and exploited it for 6 years. And I let them. The admission hung between us, painful and necessary. What do we do now? He asked. Now we protect our children. We teach them that they don't have to accept less than they deserve from anyone, including family members who are supposed to love them unconditionally. He nodded slowly. Even if it means my parents lose their house. Especially if it means that. Because maybe losing everything they built on our backs will teach them something about consequences and respect. For the first time since this nightmare started, Wyatt reached across the table and took my hand. I'm sorry, he said. I should have protected you and the kids years ago. I should have seen what they were doing. You see it now, I said. That's what matters. We sat there, holding hands for a long time. It was the first moment of peace I'd felt since walking into that dining room and seeing my children with empty plates. The next 3 months unfolded exactly as my lawyer and accountant predicted. Addison and Roger couldn't refinance. Foreclosure proceedings began. They found a small 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, selling most of their furniture. Roger's truck was repossessed. Peyton found a roommate, picked up a second job. Her Instagram, once filled with curated lifestyle shots, went silent. I waited for satisfaction, the vindictive pleasure I'd imagined. But it never arrived. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, not regret. Just a vast emptiness where my relationship with Wyatt's family used to exist. What I didn't expect was the letter. It arrived 4 months after those phone calls. Handwritten, no return label. Addison's careful cursive. I held it for a long time. Dear Leah. It began. No sweetheart, no honey. Just my name. I've started this letter 17 times. Each time I wrote something, then crumpled it up because it wasn't honest enough. I'm going to try one more time to just tell you the truth. You were right about all of it. We treated your children poorly. We prioritized Peyton's kids over Mia and Evan in ways that were cruel and deliberate. We made them feel less than. And we did it consciously, telling ourselves we had good reasons, but knowing deep down that we didn't. I told myself it was about blood, about biology, about maintaining family traditions. But the truth is simpler and uglier than that. I was jealous of you. You had the education I never got, the career I never pursued, the financial independence I never achieved. You represented everything I'd given up or never had the courage to chase. And instead of being proud of my son for finding someone so accomplished, I resented you for it. Peyton was my do-over. I poured everything into her kids that I felt I missed with my own children. And when you came along with your success, your money, your confidence, I saw you as competition instead of family. So I took your money, and I let you believe it made you belong. But I never really let you in. I never really accepted that your children were as much my grandchildren as Peyton's. I kept you at arm's length while bleeding you dry. And I told myself I was doing it for family when really I was just being spiteful and small. Losing the house, losing our comfortable life. It forced me to look at what we'd done. Roger and I are living in a 2-bedroom apartment that costs more per month than our mortgage did, and we're barely making it. Peyton is working herself to exhaustion just to keep her kids housed. And we did this to ourselves, not you. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for anything except the chance, maybe someday, to be a real grandmother to Mia and Evan. To show them that adults can learn and change and do better. To prove that I'm capable of loving them the way I should have from the beginning. If you're not ready for that, I understand. If you're never ready for that, I understand that too. I just needed you to know that I see what we did. I see it clearly now, and I'm sorry. It was signed simply, Addison. No love, no regards. I read it 3 times before showing it to Wyatt. He read it slowly, then set it down. What do you think? He asked. I think it's the first honest thing she said to me in 6 years. I answered. But I don't know if one letter changes anything. Do you want it to? That was the real question. Did I want to rebuild a relationship with people who'd hurt my children so deliberately? I don't know yet, I admitted. Ask me again in a few months. Wyatt and I had started marriage counseling. Our therapist, Dr. Chin, helped Wyatt understand how deeply his mother had conditioned him to prioritize her emotional needs. She showed him how Addison had trained him to believe a good son never questioned his mother. It was painful to watch him grapple with that realization. For my part, Dr. Chin helped me see how losing my parents had made me vulnerable to Addison's manipulation. She didn't let me off the hook for ignoring my instincts, but she helped me understand why I'd done it. The counseling wasn't magic. But slowly, incrementally, we were building something stronger. Wyatt started setting boundaries. When his mother called to complain, he told her he couldn't listen and ended the call. When Peyton blamed me, he responded, "You're responsible for your own choices." When Roger tried to guilt him, Wyatt finally said family works both ways. It was remarkable watching him find his spine. The biggest changes came in our children. Mia stopped apologizing for everything. Evan started talking about his feelings, taking up space again, being loud and messy, exactly as a 7-year-old should be. They stopped asking about Grammy and Pop around month 3. When I eventually showed them Addison's letter in month 5, Mia thought about it for a long time. Maybe when I'm older, she finally said. Right now, I don't think I'm ready. Is that okay? That's more than okay, baby. You get to decide. What about you, Evan? Wyatt asked. Evan shrugged. I don't know. I don't really miss them. Is that bad? Not even a little bit, I assured him. 6 months after everything fell apart, we had dinner as a family. Just the 4 of us. Wyatt made pasta. The kids set the table. I lit candles. We ate, talked, laughed. Somewhere in the middle of Evan telling a ridiculous story, I looked around our table and realized this was what family was supposed to feel like. Safe, equal, unconditional. I'd spent 6 years trying to buy my way into belonging with people who would never truly let me in. I'd funded a comfortable lifestyle for people who treated my children as disposable. I'd convinced myself that love just looked different in different families. But I'd been wrong. Love doesn't look like empty plates and casual cruelty. Love doesn't come with conditions and hierarchies and payment plans. Real love looks like this. Like pasta dinner on a Tuesday night, with sauce on the tablecloth and kids talking over each other, and nobody keeping score of who deserves what. I'd burned down the toxic structure I'd been supporting for years. And from the ashes, we were building something real. The screams that had filled Addison's house the night I made those phone calls had been the sound of consequences arriving after years of being held at bay. I delivered them with precision and purpose, timing the devastation to match the cruelty my children had experienced. I'd never regret it, not for a single moment, because my children deserved a mother who would protect them, even when it meant going to war with the family I tried so hard to join. They deserved to learn that they didn't have to accept less than they were worth, that boundaries were healthy, that real love never required them to make themselves smaller. And if teaching them that meant dismantling someone else's comfortable life, then that was a price I'd pay every single time. Ending/CTA*. This story of justice and boundaries truly hooked me from start to finish. My favorite part was how Leah timed her revenge to exactly 18 minutes, mirroring the time her children sat with empty plates. It was chillingly precise. What about you? Have you ever had to draw a hard line with family, even when it felt impossible? Or have you seen a situation where someone was used like an ATM? Tell me what you think in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories. ***.